It's time for the news.
Several accords and memoranda of understanding have been signed between Algeria and Tanzania here in Algiers, and notably in the fields of energy, trade, vocational training, as well as culture and arts. And the Tanzanian embassy was inaugurated today here in Algiers. And the heads of the Economic Community of West African States issued a communique demanding that Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum elected to be returned to power within a week. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, chaired Tuesday meeting of the High Commission for the Control of Customs Declaration and Commercial Transactions. And the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has received in Algiers the visiting Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, who, according to a press release from the Presidency of the Republic, the meeting took place in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmad Attaf, and the Director of Cabinet at the Presidency of the Republic, Mohamed Nadir Larbawi. In a statement to the press following her meeting with the President of the Republic, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of Tanzania expressed her country's commitment to developing historical and solid relations with Algeria to encompass broader areas. Said Bougazi has more.
The Tanzanian minister highlighted the solid historical relations linking the two countries, stressing that her meeting with President Tebboune had enabled her to discuss several issues. The two parties agreed to strengthen and develop relations in several areas, including education, health, energy, oil and gas. After underlining that the two countries should develop bilateral economic exchanges as agreed at this meeting, Mrs. Stergomena Lawrence Tax invited businessmen from both countries to exchange visits and explore the potential and areas of investment offered by Algeria and Tanzania. The Tanzanian minister praised Algeria's considerable support for her country in various fields, saying that the two countries would be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the establishment of their diplomatic relations. She revealed that the official inauguration of the headquarters of the Tanzanian embassy in Algiers would take place today.
And several accords and memoranda of understanding have been signed between Algeria and Tanzania here in Algiers, and notably in the fields of energy, trade, vocational training, higher education, scientific research, as well as art and culture. The signed memoranda came in line with the national development plans of the two countries and which go in line with the strengthening of inter-African relations. This came following the holding of the fifth session of the Joint Cooperation Commission between Algeria and Tanzania under the chairmanship of Foreign Affairs Ahmad Attaf and his Tanzanian counterpart. And the Tanzanian embassy was inaugurated today here in Algiers. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Said Shengriha, was received Tuesday on the second day of his visit to Russia by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation Army, General Sergei Shoigu. A statement from the Ministry of National Defense said so. An extended meeting took place between the delegations of the two countries, who examined the possibilities for strengthening cooperation between the two armies and the prospects for consolidating it. And during the meeting, the Army General expressed his thanks for the warm welcome extended to him and conveyed the greetings of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin.
I would like to express my thanks and gratitude for the warm welcome and hospitality that we enjoyed since our arrival to the Russian Federation. I carry a message of friendship from the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, to his counterpart, President Vladimir Putin, and to the friendly Russian people and its armed forces, expressing the importance of this visit that will contribute to strengthening our bilateral cooperation.
And the Army General then visited the tomb of the unknown soldier of the Red Square, where he was received by the military commander of the city of Moscow, and laid a wreath of flowers on the memorial to the unknown soldier and observed a minute's silence before listening to the national anthem. He then reviewed a detachment of the Guard of Honor from the Russian Ministry of Defense, who paid military honors to him. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. And still with the Algerian-Tanzanian relations, or back to it, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has said that the fruitful debates which marked the fifth session of the joint Algerian-Tanzanian Cooperation Commission reflected the two countries' attachment to the principles of peace and their rejection of injustice and hegemony, as well as their ongoing quest to ensure that the collective interests of African countries prevail in the face of the contrast or the constant challenges facing the continent and the changes taking place in the world. In his closing address to the Joint Commission, Ahmed Attaf recalled the special brotherly atmosphere that had characterized the meeting and welcomed the very positive results and qualitative conclusions that reflected our shared desire to speed up the pace of bilateral cooperation in various fields.
The agreements and memoranda of understanding and executive programs clearly determine the priorities of the partnership between the two countries in the next stage, particularly in the fields of energy, trade, the pharmaceutical industry, agriculture, vocational education and training, culture and archives. These areas are adapted to the development plans adopted by both countries and are fully in line with our common orientation towards strengthening inter-African relations.
And with regard to the development prevailing in the African continent, Mr. Attaf underlined that Algeria and Tanzania will continue coordination and consultations in a bid to find peaceful solution, in addition to ending the suffering of the Sahrawi people who are under Moroccan occupation.
Algeria and Tanzania will continue to coordinate on the events taking place in Libya, Mali and Sudan, and on the prospects of putting an end to the suffering of the Sahrawi people in the last colony in Africa. I take this opportunity to commend the firm commitment of the United Republic of Tanzania to support the struggle of the Sahrawi people for self-determination in accordance with the resolutions of the United Nations and the African Union.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 14 hours 38 minutes Algiers time. And a memorandum of understanding has been signed in Zimbabwe between Algeria and Zimbabwe for the development of bilateral cooperation in the energy sector, according to the press release from the Ministry of Energy and Mines. The memorandum of understanding was signed by the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, and the Zimbabwean Minister of Energy and Energy Development, Soda Jemu, at the end of their talks as part of Mohamed Arkab's visit to Zimbabwe. Mohamed Khatil has more.
The press release said that the memorandum covers the development of bilateral cooperation in the fields of oil, gas, electricity, renewable energies, and training. During their talks, Mohamed Arkab and Soda Jemu examined ways and means of strengthening and promoting cooperation relations between the two countries in the field of energy at all stages of the value chain in the hydrocarbon sector, as well as the regulatory and legal framework governing activities linked to hydrocarbons and the marketing and distribution of petroleum products. The two parties underlined their desire to create business opportunities and establish mutually beneficial partnerships in both countries and abroad as part of the strategy of the Sonatrach and Sonalgas groups to invest in other African markets. The two ministers also discussed ways of strengthening bilateral cooperation in the fields of electricity, engineering, the development of electricity networks, and renewable energies. The meeting highlighted the importance of exchange in experience and expertise, as well as training and development of human resources, particularly with regard to mastering digital technologies and modern applications aimed at improving the operational performance of oil structures while benefiting from Algeria's experience in this area. On this occasion, Mohamed Arqab presented the broad outlines of the development program for the energy sector, as well as the new regulatory framework governing hydrocarbon activity, underlining Algeria's desire to consolidate relations between the two countries in this field and to intensify exchanges with African countries, according to the same press release. For his part, Soda Shimu noted his country's commitment to developing relations with Algeria and continuing to strengthen cooperation, particularly in economic areas, notably the participation of Sonatrach and Sonalgas in the development of investments in Zimbabwe through the strengthening of mutually beneficial partnerships in the oil, gas and electricity industries, in addition to training.
14 hours 41 minutes Algiers time. We're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and still with the visit of the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, to Zimbabwe. The letter was received on Tuesday by the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, according to a press release from the ministry. And during this meeting, the Zimbabwean President conveyed his brotherly greetings to President Tebboune, according to the same source. Mohamed Arqab, in turn, conveyed to President Mnangagwa the greetings of the President of the Republic and reiterated Algeria's willingness to work together to give a new impetus to Algerian-Zimbabwean relations, notably in the fields of energy and mining, crowned today by the signing of a memorandum of understanding in the field of energy aimed at developing bilateral cooperation in the fields of oil, gas, electricity, renewable energies and training. The meeting was an opportunity to affirm the strong political will of the leaders of the two countries to raise bilateral relations to a higher level, reflecting the quality and strength of the historic ties of cooperation between the two countries, concluded the press release. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. And the heads of the Economic Community of West African States issued a communiqué demanding that Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum be returned to power within a week. The heads of the West African bloc are meeting today in Abuja to discuss the crisis in Niger, and meetings will be held until next Friday with the aim of finding a solution to the crisis in Niger. Meanwhile, Niger announced the reopening of its land and air borders with 5 neighboring countries. Let's recall that Algeria reiterated its deep attachment to the return to constitutional order in Niger and its support to Mohamed Bazoum as legitimate president, while warning against foreign military interventions. You still listen to Radio Algeria International. The Summer University of Sahrawi students started today in the Algerian city of Boumerdès, and our colleague Wahib Amiri, who is on the spot, has met with Mohamed Ali Al-Nadaf, diplomat at the Embassy of Sahrawi Republic to Uganda, who had this to say about it.
I just came to make my trip to join my work in Africa, and they invited me to attend this edition of the Summer University, organized, of course, by the Committee of Friendship, Algerian Friendship with Sahrawi Republic. So I came here to play a role. I don't know what I'm going to do. In fact, maybe I'm going to interpret to some delegation. I don't know. Anyway, I'm here to do whatever I can do.
14 hours 44 minutes Algiers time. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and now to the thorny issue of Palestine. The Council of Foreign Ministers of the member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has warned against the repercussions of the continuation of acts of desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and other Muslim and Christian holy places in the occupied city of Al-Quds by the Zionist occupation forces and settler gangs. In a press release carried by the Wafa news agency, the OIC stated that the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque is a blatant violation of international law which threatens international stability and peace. Said Bouazi reports.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation reiterated that the city of Al-Quds is the eternal capital of Palestine and an integral part of the Palestinian territories occupied in 1967. The OIC recalled in this respect that the Muslim and Christian holy places in Al-Quds came under the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan before concluding any measure or decision aimed at modifying the status of Al-Quds, its nature or its demographic composition, and any attempt to impose a so-called Zionist sovereignty over the city is illegal and illegitimate under international law and represents a violation of the relevant United Nations resolutions. On the ground, dozens of fanatic Zionist settlers Wednesday morning broke into the compounds of Al-Aqsa Mosque under heavy protection from the Zionist police. The extremist settlers, divided into groups, raided the Holy Islamic Mosque from Al-Maghariba Gate, took provocative tours in its compounds, and performed Talmudic rituals in the eastern part of the mosque. This comes at a time when Zionist forces intensify measures against Palestinians coming from Jerusalem to enter the mosque, inspecting their IDs and briefly detaining them. Elsewhere, the Zionist occupation forces shot and killed a Palestinian child on Tuesday evening near the town of Essumo, south of the occupied West Bank city of El Khalil. The Israeli army opened fire at Mohammed Farid al-Zarir 15 near the illegal Israeli settlement of Esmu and prevented medical crews from reaching him.
14 hours 46 minutes Algiers time. We'll listen to Radio Algeria International, and that's it for our news bulletin. Now the headlines. Several accords and memoranda of understanding have been signed between Algeria and Tanzania here in Algiers, and notably in the fields of energy, trade, vocational training, higher education, scientific research, as well as culture and arts. And the Tanzanian embassy was inaugurated today here in Algiers. The heads of the Economic Community of West African States issued a communique demanding that Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum be returned to power within a week. And that's it, dear listeners, for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a cultural program presented by Jamal Salmani.